Shortly after the imposition of martial law, more than 10,000 Solidarity activists were interned, which paralysed the organisation's operations for some time. In addition, martial law meant a number of difficulties and restrictions for citizens, including the introduction of a curfew, multi-level surveillance, frequent searches, and the introduction of censorship in public broadcasting.
Stan wojenny to
Martial law was not only tens of thousands of internees, but also more than 100 people murdered in the aftermath of martial law.
bitych, poniżanych.
Piotr Duda, the current chairman of the Solidarity Trade Union, stressed that to this day there is a dispute over the interpretation of the events of December 1981.
Musimy pamiętać o tej historii.
All those who carried out the tasks of the Jaruzelski regime today pretend to be Democrats, and we know perfectly well who stood on what side in 1980 and 1981. There was already a president who said, "Let's bet on the future, forget history, forget the past." No, this is a shared task for us.
Stał po jakiej stronie w 1980 i w 1981 roku.
The top commanders of martial law stand out: General Wojciech Jaruzelski, General Czesław Kiszczak, and General Florian Sawicki. The main reason for imposing martial law was the communist fear of losing power. In 1981 to 1983, Solidarity activists resisted unlawful detention in direct clashes with officers of the repressive apparatus. Strikes broke out across the country, including the Wujek mine in Katowice, the Gdansk shipyard, and the Lenin steelworks in Krakow. The regime suppressed them in a brutal manner, engaging units of the security service, the civic militia, as well as ZOMO in the protests. Unfortunately, the exact number of victims in this tumultuous period is difficult to determine. People were killed covertly and secretly. The entire communist leadership of the time was responsible for this, including Czesław Kiszczak, who led the repression of priests. Although 41 years have passed since the outbreak of martial law, according to experts, the previous system continues to influence the justice system in Poland.
Wciąż orzekają sędziowie.
Polish courts continue to rule on judges and prosecute prosecutors who took part in the war against the Polish nation in the 1980s. Prosecutors of the branch commissions for the prosecution of crimes against the Polish nation have filed 38 motions with the Supreme Court. The motions are expected to lead to a resolution before the Supreme Court that 25 judges and 5 prosecutors may be held accountable.
Doprowadzić do podjęcia przed Sąd Najwyższy.
By 1981, the Solidarity movement was already so strong that it could not be stopped using conventional political methods. General Wojciech Jaruzelski, by taking the army to the streets, proved that the communists were becoming increasingly impotent, which heralded the imminent collapse of their rule in Poland. The result of the long-standing domination of the communist system in Poland was that the apparatus of power became saturated with Russian agents. We must remember that the post-communists came to power again in 1993. De facto, they never lost this power, thanks, among other things, to Donald Tusk, the famous coup d'etat and the fall of Jan Olszewski's government, which enabled them to return to power. Had it not been for that, Kwasniewski's presidency would certainly not have happened. In the evening, President Andrzej Duda, under the Pope's cross at Marshal Pilsudski Square in Warsaw, will light the light of freedom. Andrzej Duda, as he does every year, will honour the memory of those who defied the regime of the time and stood up for justice and freedom.